Either Lynn and Christian.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, for that, you get to run the meeting.
No, I have no energy. Sorry, man. I'm gonna drop maybe a few. I just wanted to give an update here.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting us know. All right. I guess I can. The release manager recruiting. Yeah, hold on. So you said, John, you mentioned Gao Chenglong from Huawei is interested.
Yeah, they reached out to me on Slack.
Okay. Can you put either their Slack handle or their GitHub handle, or get them put in the sheet, I guess. Actually, I should link that sheet, shouldn't I? We'll sync up offline. Okay, John.
Sounds good.
All right. Roadmap presentations. Are there any left? I think there might be. Oh, we were behind by one. Maybe not.
Yeah, I think mostly done.
Okay, so much for my memory. And then, okay, we have one doc to review offline, the feature freeze doc. Oh, okay. All right, extended support discussion. So I think we gathered several of the TOC members' opinions offline. Thanks, John, for prodding. Neeraj and Sven, do you want to record your opinion?
Sure. So this is basically, do you want to support 1.9 or start from 1.10?
Well, do you want to be N-1, N-1 plus 6 weeks, or N-2? Do you want to be, when do you want to start? Do you want to start with 1.9 or 1.10? Or
Okay.
do you want to do odd even?
Okay, let me just write them down then. We can move ahead to the next topic.
Sven, if you want to do the same.
Yeah, I can put it in here. I'm not strongly opinionated here.
No. Okay. Well, indicate the strength or weakness of your opinion. All right, Shweta, you have a glorious reminder for us to work on a strategy document, which is due tomorrow. That is not going to happen, at least not from the Googlers doing perf right at the moment. So, let's at least push that out by a week.
Okay. Do you think that would be enough time?
No. But it's enough time to maybe at least get started on it.
Okay. Brian started a document, but there is not anything yet.
Okay.
I'll share it with you offline.
Yeah, or in the TOC Slack channel.
I am not in the TOC Slack channel, so I'll send it to you.
All right, Brian, can you do that? Or maybe Brian's not on.
Yeah, I'll share it with one of you, and if you can share in the TOC Slack channel.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Shweta.
Okay.
And then, well, let's get the last thing, the Kubernetes 2022. Sorry, what was that, Shweta?
Are you reading 823 section, Louis, or 830 section? I feel like it's...
Oh, sorry, I scrolled too far, didn't I? Well, we did the extended support discussion, which that's made me, and then, okay, you want to review the 1.12 timeline, right? Sorry.
Yes, please. That's the visual version, but the table is more readable if it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we started our kickoff. What is TC priorities?
Review doc test case priorities.
Oh, test cases. Sorry.
Well, the P0s were done, and then we wanted to change the TCs for the most visited page, and then we end up getting few more P0s for the team. So we are trying to get them nailed down now. I think there are only 3 or 4 left. The rest were done by the team. So I was talking to Brian and Eric last time, so we were planning on giving them early on so that they can be completed versus in the last minute. But
Sounds
yeah,
good.
30th September. Yeah, by then we want it to be done. And then, yeah, a few other dates based on how we normally run the releases, but the plan is to complete that by 9th of November. The only thing which I did not have is if you have any conferences, if anybody's aware. I tried checking, I could not find, but if you are aware, maybe you want to double check the dates.
Like there's
14th of October is during KubeCon.
Okay, there you go.
I'm not sure
Yeah,
that
why
that
don't we
makes
just
it.
bump that like 5 days, so it's on Monday. If
Does that
well,
make a
unless
huge
I mean, if
difference?
the people that are doing the code freeze are at KubeCon, then I don't think they're gonna like that date. But if not, then it's probably fine.
Since we don't have release managers, I don't know that we know who.
Yeah,
doing
I
that.
think doing it on what's that? I think Thursday versus Monday is not a big difference, anyways. We usually get delayed a few days, anyways. So whatever ends up working there for the release managers, I think is fine.
Do we have any release managers?
Yeah, that's. What was that?
I was saying, do we have any release managers? You're talking about code freeze, right, John? Not the.
Not yet.
Okay, okay.
Any other opinions about the schedule? Okay, thanks, Nir. Okay, sounds like there's nothing too controversial here, but we might adjust the build date a bit, but we can figure that out when we get some release managers. But this is the general flow. Okay.
I think I have one really minor question, which is like, what's the latest it could slip to before we have to skip past Thanksgiving holiday? Like how much buffer do we have here?
Probably about 10 days.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably fine. If we start slipping, we'll need to adjust. Okay. Seems fine to me.
Yeah, the good news is we have not, other than the last release, which was done 1 week, 1 or 2 days late, most of the releases were done on the same day, which was quite an achievement. So, and going with that history pattern, we should be good with 10 days of Thanksgiving.
Okay. Last year we shipped the release in December, right? Am I doing my math right?
December.
1/7.
I don't recall we shipped in December.
Yeah. November 19th is what I see the date, Louis. It was announced.
Okay.
It's Istio 1.8.
I'm probably off by a year. Okay. Anyway, these are the dates. They look like the dates normally look. I'm going to go back to the other agenda.
Can we add the notes to that one pager that the ETA is off by 1 week now? So we are moving towards, let me check the date, 6th of September. That's this ETA now, or 7th of September. That's a Tuesday.
Are we meeting next week? I think it's a Labor Day.
Right.
Probably not then.
Okay, so are we saying by 9/6 the draft is ready and the following week we are meeting to go over it? Is that the plan?
That is a plan. That is the best plan we currently have.
Okay.
Fix that offline. Okay, coming back to extended support. Let's see.
So Louis, taking everyone except for Sven registered essentially like ranked choice voting in terms of the duration and which releases to extend. Summing all of that up, the clear winner would be every release at 6 weeks, which is everyone's either first or second choice.
Okay. That is fine by me. I guess it's fine by everybody, by definition, who's their first or second choice, or if they don't have a preference. So I should capture a note.
Now we just need to decide which release to start with this.
And if I could summarize a consensus there, Louis, aside from, I think oh wait, no, you said you're agnostic about 1.9 or 1.10. In that case, the consensus is very much a dry run on 1.9 with official support starting in 1.10. I don't know exactly what was meant by the dry run. If that's like, are we going to release those binaries and CVE patches, or we might need to elaborate a little bit on what that means.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that meant either. Who wrote dry
So
run?
I think that the dry run means that we just make a commitment for this release, and then so rather than announcing that this will be the way we'll do it for all other releases, we just do it for one, and then like based on what we find. I thought that's what dry run meant.
Yeah, I think it means don't announce it, but do it. So I think it would mean building binaries.
So would we be releasing the binaries then, and just like not tell? We're extending 1.9, but we're not telling anyone that we're extending it effectively.
Yeah, just put them on the release page.
Who does that help?
What? Yeah, exactly. Why would we do that?
I was going to say, I thought Brian's dry run was we would maybe build them, but we wouldn't actually release them. And that way we would know how much time it took to do the additional builds.
Yeah, but we can't use this dry run as an exploratory thing to make a decision here if we're already.
Well, at this point, I think you're right, John.
Yeah, like if we're already deciding that we want to do it for 1.10, then there's no point doing a exploratory thing.
Or we just announced the support for 1.9. So the good thing about 1.9, I think Aspenmesh, Jacob is lined up to do the work, so we don't have a step issue.
There's a difference between announcing, hey, we X, just to announce that the release is built and available, and announcing that we officially support every release N+6 or whatever. So it's one thing to just announce a release, and another thing to announce that we will forever support a particular release schedule.
I don't know, it seems a lot simpler to me. Like 1.9, we've already said it was out of support 6 days ago. It seems simpler to me to just put out a blog post saying, hey, from now on, starting with 1.10, every release will be supported 6 weeks longer. Here's the next 3 or 4 releases when they'll be out of support. And then hopefully everyone's happy. Having like this partial state is kind of confusing, I think.
But we can still build 1.9 releases even if it's not supported. I mean, nobody prevents us from doing it. Even if it's not supported, we can still publish a release.
Yeah, and don't forget most of your users are on 1.9 from the survey Mitch collected.
Yeah, 1.9 has only just peaked in terms of onboarding. So as far as strategicness, or strategery, to borrow a phrase, we're going to have a lot of users who need to upgrade to 1.9 if we're going end of life now. Making that process as painless as possible would behoove us. Although, I mean, whether we extend it 6 weeks or not, they need to upgrade and fast.
Yeah, and to just clarify, so for 1.9, we did publish the announcement that it was going to go EOL on the 24th, but the EOL announcement did not go out just because of the status from last week. So, it looks a little bit in limbo if you were to just go to istio.io, and as far as what is going on with 1.9 anyway.
So we have someone to do the work for 1.9. We have users who would like us to do this for 1.9. Is there a significant drawback to doing this for 1.9? John, I think you've been pretty vocal in advocating for not doing it in 1.9. Would you care to elaborate?
I just think it's kind of confusing to users that we say like, hey, this version's end of support, and then just kidding, you have 6 more weeks, but then by the time we announce that, it's actually like 4 more weeks, and then the release managers have kind of already stopped working on it, but now we have to bring them back. It just seems like we've already added support, or we're already going to add the support for 1.10 plus. It seems simpler to just do that. I don't have a strong opinion if we want to do something for 1.9.
Okay.
Just trying to keep things simple.
I think the hardest part can be, and this is more for like the PSWG, right? Like for us, getting a release out, doing qualification testing. We do accept security patches still, but we don't build anything typically for older, release branches if somebody were to put them up. But during the release cycle, on patch day, that's when things can get a bit, chaotic and we're kind of flustered, getting, in this case, 1.9, 1.10, I guess, and 1.11, not really 1.12. I guess it was a little bit more just because we did 3 this past patch cycle versus typically we do 2. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in consideration.
So how about this?
Go ahead, Lynn.
How about this? Let's start with 1.9 and not announce going forward. Just announce, 1.9, we're adding like additional support for a few more weeks. And then 1.10, we can announce for, just depends on how 1.9 goes, we can announce for every single releases. We're going to do this. And it would allow us to utilize the data we have from 1.9 to at least gauge the workloads. How much workload on the build test release work group and how much workload on the product security work group. To give us the confidence, if 6 weeks is the right number, if every release is the right number.
I'm in favor of that. I was actually thinking, I think about this a lot like just any other kind of feature of Istio, right? Like it needs to go to experimental before it goes to stable. So we can kind of announce experimental support for longer releases. We're going to start with 6 weeks, and we can say we're asking for feedback from the community on it, right? And see if people respond. I mean, we could also not announce it, but I think it could also make sense to sort of announce it as an experimental thing that we're trying.
How do we want to gather feedback? Right, because the one thing we know is, anecdotal feedback doesn't allow us to make useful decisions. Gathering non-anecdotal feedback.
Yeah, the difficulty is getting feedback from targeted users who actually took advantage of leveraging 1.9 into this new extended period and then did a direct upgrade to 1.11. That's a fairly targeted group of users. What I could do is circle back to users who have particularly called this out in our upgrade notes in the past and ask for their opinion on it. There's no guarantee that they would be in the practice of using it. As a matter of fact, if they filled out our upgrade survey and they finished their upgrade to the whatever version they were upgrading to, it's likely that they would no longer be able to take advantage of the one for 1.9.
So can we ask something relevant in the 1.11 survey, or do we already?
The 1.11 survey is live, but last week we didn't have any respondents, so it's not too late to modify it.
Yeah, I think we should at least put something in there to ask if they were upgrading from 1.9 if you don't already have that in there, and then ask them if they, like, how long they needed. I don't know. Yeah, think of some way to ask.
Yeah, I can modify the 1.11 survey to include that, and maybe even to reference the blog post saying, hey, we're extending 1.9 by 6 weeks and we'd like feedback.
Yeah, that sounds good. Is there any value to also update the 1.9 and 1.10 survey? Because I assume when user upgrade to 1.10, when they look at our survey, they could also be asked for a choice of, hey, is the extension of 1.9 support helpful for you as you upgrade to 1.10?
Yeah, 1.10, it might make sense to modify the 1.10 survey. I don't think it would make sense to modify the 1.9 survey at this point, because the survey is designed for, when you're upgrading to a new version, that's when you provide the feedback. Does that make sense?
Yeah, except a lot of our users haven't even made to 1.9. They may start looking at an upgrade to 1.9, so it could be useful to collect those data too. So like the diagram you produced, right? A lot of users are not even on 1.9 today.
That's true. Okay, I can do that. And I will work on a blog post, it sounds like, announcing this for 1.9 and requesting feedback. Is there anyone in particular who'd like to kind of collaborate or review that post?
I can collaborate with you if no one else volunteer.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah, sure. Louis, I know you were going to say something. I think I stepped over you. Do you have any
No,
feedback?
sorry, my network's bad. Can somebody summarize what just happened? If you want to take note.
Yeah, I will do that.
Perhaps the most exciting thing about this is that in 2 weeks at the next TOC meeting, we won't have to talk about extended support. I'm excited about that.
So I did hear the word experimental. I don't know what that means, right? Experimental means something can be taken away later, which is going to completely run against user expectations for how people manage releases, right? Right. I think we already have strong feedback, right, that we have to do something. And right now, n-1 plus 6 weeks is the minimum we agreed to do, right? So I don't think we can call that experimental. I'm not sure quite who made that comment, but
I think what Sven was saying was essentially to put it out there as we're doing this for 1.9, and if this is not the right number or the right number of releases to extend, etc., we're looking for feedback. We're going to be honing the policy over the coming releases. Sven, does that sound about right?
Yeah, I just don't want us to say this is the policy going forward, right? Like we are going to do every release at exactly 6 weeks, right? Like we want to get feedback, so let's actually just say that. It's an experimental extension. It's not experimental support. It's an experimental extension.
Okay, remove experimental. Sounds good, Louis.
Yeah, just say extend 1.9 to collect feedback. Yeah. I think Louis is having more network problems.
Okay, I think I captured everything. So Mitch, you're going to update the survey for 1.9, 1.10, 1.11. You and I are going to collaborate a blog to explain this to our user. And then we're going to look at Alon's official support, starting with 1.10.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone. I know that this was a slog, but I really appreciate everyone's attention on this.
Thank you for driving this. It's a lot of back and forth.
Are you going to take on writing like a blog post or something to announce this to users?
Yes, Lynn and I are going to collaborate on that.
And we are not officially posting an end of life statement for 1.9 at this point, correct?
Yep.
We should probably post an updated estimate for end of life on 1.9 for the new 6-week out date, which is approximately early October.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So we essentially it will be captured in that blog. We're going to collaborate, which we're hoping to publish in the next few days.
Yes.
Louis, are you back? I think the next topic is yours.
That was last week.
Oh,
Or did
sorry.
we not go over it?
We didn't get to it last week.
We didn't get to it. Okay.
Sorry, I took the notes on last week. too.
Well, that's yeah. Well, we were all putting that's because that's where we had the place for the opinion.
Yeah, I'll make a comment for people.
I know some of the stuff around 122, but I'm not sure exactly what Louis meant by that. Louis, do you want, if you can, do you want to type it and then I can?
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
or you can type. Go ahead.
That 122 we know breaks Istio 1.9 and below. Seeing as 1.9 is now end of life.
We just unended end of life it, but
okay. Well then. And the other thing was 122. Sorry, 110 was not going to be qualified in the support window of 122. But what we were testing it, and so we indicated on the release status page that it was tested against 122, but it wasn't supported. So there was kind of this chasm for users, right? If they were going to be on 122, what release were they going to be on? They would have had to have been on 111 really to be on a supported version, right? Which is a pretty demanding upgrade set for people in some cases. But I think it's okay that we indicated that it's tested. But if we extend the support for 1.9 by 6 weeks, right, we're theoretically going to have more users who are going to be on 1.9 for longer and therefore maybe more likely to run into the 122 train. But I don't think we're certainly not planning on backporting the support into 1.9. So I think we already took the only action we can take, which is to say that 110 was tested. We could do a little bit more and say that 110 is supported. Right, so that's really the only decision we could actually make of relevance, which would, in further 110 release, expand the number of Kubernetes versions that we claim to support by one. But I'm not sure it's material. John, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm fine with saying we officially support it. I mean, we already did all of the work to do it anyways. So right now we're just doing the work and not getting the benefits of user adoption. I've seen a lot of people say like, this product doesn't support 1.22. I'm going to switch to something else that does. That'd be a really dumb reason to lose an Istio user when we've already done all the work to support it. So I'm in favor of saying that it's officially supported. We certainly shouldn't say like going forward we'll support 5 versions forever. But I don't think that putting one extra version says that. So.
Any other opinions?
So I'm kind of interested in the like generic version of this, right? So should we be generally doing some forward compatibility tests when new versions of Kubernetes come out so that we can support it, so that we can announce that it is tested and or supported in older releases, right? And like how far back should we go? I think that's, to me, that's an interesting question. Can we set a precedent for how we want to handle this in the future?
Right, so is there a new Kubernetes release that comes out during the existing support window of an Istio release? Should we qualify and support it on that event?
Yeah, I mean, it's always the case that when a Kubernetes release comes out, it's not supported by Istio, right? So like whenever a new release comes out, our default behavior today is we don't support it until the next Istio release. And so the question is, do we want to change that? And how?
And that would be the process, right? We perform the qualification, or at least some of the qualification, right? All the automation. Right, we're already doing it, as John pointed out.
Yeah.
So is there anything more that needs to get done process-wise to just say that that's part of the release, release manager's requirements, is that if a new Kubernetes release comes out during the cycle, that it's their responsibility to make sure the automated testing is run on it.
Well, and how far back do we go? So I think it definitely makes sense to do that for sort of our current release. Should we go any farther back than one release?
Well, I think it should be, you would expect it to be any currently supported release.
So that adds a number of new tests that we need to be doing, which I guess maybe we're already doing, but like the matrix gets bigger. And then I guess the other question is this a provisional one where we say, like, if it breaks, where do we actually try to like go and fix things with patches to make them work? And where do we say, oh, sorry, this breaks, you need to use a newer version of Istio?
So with their 4-month release cycle, we will have a release that releases 1 month before their release, right? Once a year. Which means that release will be out for 2 months while their release is out.
Yeah, I think it totally makes sense to me to say that we want to try to support that one. I'm wondering about the old ones. So like what 110 supported on 122 makes sense because 122 came out while 110 was the current supported release. But 1.9 is more questionable to me, and 1.8 is even more questionable.
Right, I think that there the concern is the major vendors pushing, like having things like GKE and the Rapid Channel, right, where they promote the Kubernetes release 2 months after, right, to users who may or may not be updating their Istio releases.
Yeah.
Right, it's somewhere in the 6 weeks to 2 month window, right?
So Louis, are you thinking we should just do it for all supported? Like we should do forward, like the existing back compat, but then do forward compat for every Kubernetes that comes out while a release is supported?
Well, given this, the spirit of our most recent decision was let's make it an incremental step and see if it satisfies people. We could do the last release.
When you say last release, do you mean
the current?
Like not 1.9, right? Because 1.9 actually does not work with 1.22.
So when a Kubernetes release comes out, we say whatever the most recent Istio is that is supported on that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's fine as long as it actually is supported. If we find out it doesn't work, then we may have to have no.
Yeah, well, that's the question then. If it doesn't work, do we try to backport to it?
Right. Do we have to backport? Right.
Yeah.
We might have to.
We don't have any known breakages until 1.25 at least, where we have only a few non-core or non-stable features we use now. It's HPA and pod description budget, which is pretty easy because it's just part of the install. So unless they make more subtle changes that break us, we should actually be pretty good going forward on compatibility.
And I think they're trying to not break people too, right? Like I think they don't want to be breaking Istio, and maybe we should talk to some folks in the Kubernetes community about that, about how to make sure they don't do anything that like breaks us the day before the release or something. Right?
Yeah, we do test their pre-release builds. So we at least give them pretty early feedback when they do impact us. That doesn't mean for changes that they've planned and that they'll undo them necessarily, but we've got like subtle bugs that impacted only Istio, for example, before. So that's been helpful.
I think.
Jacob, you have.
Yeah. So when we mean that we'll test it, does that mean just running things in kind for that version, or should we also do qualification testing?
So all the automation plus whatever functions the release manager would run to qualify a release, but not the bug bash or anything like that. That seems the appropriate level of testing, right?
Yeah, I
Jake, do you
would
think
say
that's
so.
asking too much?
I know Eric is in charge of test and release, so I'd like his thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, my only concern right now is we don't do qualification testing of all releases after we've, after the .0 release, as far as I know.
We just run the automation. Well,
We run automation, we run qualification, but we only run qualification against one Kubernetes release. So we don't. So usually when we used to do the .0, we would run against, in this case, 20, 21, 22. But when we do the point releases, I think they only run against, say 22. They don't run all of them again.
mm-hmm.
So it sounds like what we'd want to do is when we would pick up one of the older ones, we'd want to make sure at least we requalified that Kubernetes version.
Sorry, when you say that, right, because we're doing this when there's a new Kubernetes version, so presumably we're going to want to run against that one, because that's where the most of the risk is, right? The older ones would change less, and so the need to requalify against them would be lower.
Correct. So I guess the question, there's 2 points. One is in the case of qualifying a new version, then yes, we just want to qualify that new version. I was also thinking you were talking about picking up additional support going back. But if that's not the case, then we should just have to qualify the new version. And typically we've already been running. I mean, John is usually very quickly getting our automated tests to run against, the beta versions before they come out. So from an automated standpoint, we're usually way ahead. It's just the qualification where we're behind. We typically don't qualify until we release the point or release a minor release. The patch releases we don't. So I guess I'm saying here is when we pick up the release for the new version. So let's say we want, we were behind. Let's say 122 came out after us. Then we would pick up the 1.22 qualification testing in the next patch release, I think is what we need to do, right?
Yes. And then we might not need to patch, right, to support it.
Correct. I don't think we need to make a patch to support it, but I think what we would do is we would run the qualification testing. And whether we run it on the next available patch or we run it on the last available patch that was out, and then we can add it into that supported releases document on that page to claim support. Does that make sense? So we either run the next patch release or the prior patch release from when the new Kubernetes version comes out to verify things work. And then we would update the supported releases document with that statement.
Yeah, the only thing with just qualify on the patch releases, if you look at our documentation, we don't tell people like 1.9.5, only that version supports Kubernetes 1.21, for example. It could be pretty confusing. So if there's no issue with .0 release, might just be easier to qualify back to the .0 and just allow support for all the patches for that .0 minor release.
Could do that as well.
Yeah, that might, because we only indicate support at the minor release level, right?
Yeah. It's just easier for user to consume that data, I think.
Right, but if
Yeah.
we did need a patch to support it,
Then
I
it
would
would
say-
have to be on that patch, yes, and on that patch or later.
And then we just have to add a note in the supported releases document.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that's a very rare cases.
Yes.
Mitch, you had a hand for a while.
Oh, I just wanted to point out, I think in the case of 122, all of the incompatibilities were deprecations that had been around since 116. So this is the sort of thing that we could probably plan for and not be responding to. Granted, there are always problems that occur with subtle incompatibilities, things we did not expect. And those, we have to deal with as they come. But for deprecations, we should be able to plan in advance, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and that's. Is there a good way to be testing the proposed deprecations, John, or do they kind of just creep in over time across multiple releases in Kubernetes?
I think there actually is a flag that allows you to fail on deprecations that we can maybe start testing with. Although right now it wouldn't help because we know that it's deprecated. Like if you do just like helm install Istio, it'll spit out a bunch of warnings if you're on a recent enough Kubernetes that things are going to break in 1.25. But nothing else can really be deprecated that we're using other than those two HBA and pod disruption budget, because they're all core APIs that we depend on now. Well, they could, but it would be the longest deprecation they've had probably. So I wouldn't expect it.
Eric, do you want to have a look into that? I don't know exactly how we want to define it from a. Well, I think the build test and release working group should figure out, like, if there's a way to start testing with deprecated features disabled. That would be some good hygiene. I think the struggle there would be if the deprecated features are replaced by non-stable APIs, then obviously that creates churn on both ends, and that's hard. But I think that's something worth looking into.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, so I think, do we have agreement that we would just qualify the newest Kubernetes release against the most recently released minor version at the 0 patch level? So we need to go and update some doc for the release managers. Is that correct? Eric, could you take on an AI just to make sure that that decision gets captured in the appropriate doc as well?
Yes, I can do that. And I guess the question is, we're only doing this for the most recently released
Yes.
minor? Okay.
So the algorithm here is like Kubernetes 122 comes out. We test 110.0. if it passes, we're good, and we just say, hey, this is supported. What exactly do we do if it fails? Do we test, like, do we go rerun qualification against one of our patches that we think it passes it, or how do we want to manage that?
Well, hopefully we know why it failed, and if we need to patch to fix it, then we assess the risk of making that patch, right? But ideally, we make the patch.
Okay, so there's not an automated patch. This is a, like, maybe bring it up to TOC type situation, or?
I mean, if it's minor, then probably don't bring it up to TOC. Just go ahead and do it, and just put it into the normal backlog. If there's an issue, like that.
Okay, so we do a patch. We do a patch, and then we do a qualification of that patch using our normal qualification of patch process. That sounds good to me. And then, yeah, if there's a major issue, bring it up to TOC.
I think that about captures it. Okay, folks, I think we're about out of time anyway. So, and we are at the bottom of the agenda. But 2 decisions. Look at that.
And we put both of them in the previous week. Oh, wait, no, we moved one back.
I can move this one forward if we want, but
yeah, move that one up so it looks like we did the work in the more we did. Also, it helps me when I finally get around to publishing these videos, because I use the notes to say what we talked about, and if they're in the wrong week, it doesn't work well for me.
I'll bring up the upgrade experience one.
Lynn put in a note, so I think it's okay. You can leave it there.
Okay, that's fine then. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great week.
And we're skipping next.
Yeah, I captured that already, but yes.
Cool. See you later.